So today I wanted to go through pre-Sankhyaik paradigm. Yes, we did Sankhya last time. Yeah, this was Sankhya. And before I start doing that, I want us to see that what Sri Aurobindo did, he gave us actually a vision of pre-Sankhyaik paradigm already here. It's in his book, the Upanishads. And he speaks about this ancient conception of the universe, about the Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhyatma. We spoke about these, yes? So these three levels, Adhyatma is the most innermost level of our self, Adhibhuta is the surface level of our self, and in between there is Adhidaiva, subtle um, powers of consciousness. We call them faculties of consciousness. Yeah? So there is a material universe on the surface. In this material universe, there are non-material powers manifesting through the mind force and life force. These are our faculties. Yeah, so we call them devas, devatas, the gods. They are the gods, actually, for the Upanishads. And finally, there are above them, the spiritual level is non-material powers, above the non-material powers. Containing them, greater than they, is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us is called Adhyatma. Yeah? So these three is actually pre-Sankhyaik paradigm. There is no Purusha and Prakriti, there are no five senses, yeah? There are no five levels of this. And fundamentally kind of a view on our existence from the point of view of consciousness, which can be turned either within or without, and see our innermost self or outermost self. Yeah? So this outer self is our physical existence outside in time and space, and innermost self is within somewhere. And the consciousness can perceive both. Yeah? But the problem is that we can perceive either inner or outer, not both simultaneously. And this is the whole problem of the Vedantic yoga. So as we mentioned before, it's just kind of recapturing what we spoke about, that Vedantic yoga was about redirecting the innermost light to the surface through these faculties. So these faculties become consciously passive, they become perceptive of the inner light, but they don't go within, they don't leave the surface. They stay on the surface and invite the inner light to enlighten the surface. Yeah? And this is the most difficult yoga because the faculties, the indriyas, have to become consciously passive. That means they have to reject the search for their self-satisfaction, yeah, which is quite a challenge. In the later yoga, it is called the control over the senses. Yes, we have to control them because they go their own ways, like the horses run after the object of sense, and they catch everything and feed themselves with it. They are looking for self-satisfaction. But if we make them good servants of the inner self, they become consciously passive and receptive of the inner light. And the longer they stay that way, the more light is coming and the more enlightenment can take place on the surface. This is the Vedantic yoga. That's quite clear, I guess.
So, Vladimir, one question there. I just wanted to understand how may we differentiate between consciousness and self, Vladimir?
Consciousness is the property of the self. It's the intrinsic property and quality of the self. Self is the being, consciousness is the awareness of the being, self-awareness of the being. That is consciousness.
So is it possible that there could be entities that have self, but they don't have consciousness? Is like
Yes.
matter?
Yes, they are not aware totally. Yes, material forms. Yes, absolutely. Stones and so on. And they are aware of their form, but they are not of their power, so to say. That's how they keep to that particular form. They don't dissolve. There is some self-awareness there of that form, but not of the origins, of the highest origins of the being.
Like here, while discussing this concept, Vladimir, is it possible that we could relate it with the concept that you mentioned about idanta and ahanta? I mean, I-ness and thatness. Is that something relevant for this, or in terms of that being the self, I-ness being the self, or is that a different, or is that a discussion in a different context?
I-ness is rather interestingly, I-ness is rather consciousness,
Okay,
whereas thisness is the being.
I see. Okay.
There is something substantial which exists in spite of everything, and I-ness is self-awareness of that which exists.
Okay.
Well, it's
And
consciousness power going together. Yes, Bill.
I mean, from the tattvas, I mean, I'll keep this short, Vladimir, but the I-ness and the thisness have a certain equality, maybe in Adhyatma. But then I'm assuming Maya, Purusha, Prakriti are in the yellow Adideva part. They drop down there, or is it a totally different reference here, kind of?
Well, if you want to always like systematize in the sense where drops where what, yeah, they kind of find a niche for the thing. Here it is, we take it from there, that is it is. This is a mental operation. Of course, the consciousness and being are intrinsic to everything what exists, yes, everything. So it's like Sri Aurobindo says, Atman and Purusha, yes. Atman is the self, the being, which is in all selves, in every atom there is a self. Yeah? There is a being, there is a substance, in conscious or not conscious. Conscious of the form, that is much what it can do. The stone is aware of its own formation and it holds to it. The very way that it holds to it tells us that it has kind of awareness of the form. Yeah? So it doesn't fall apart. But that self-awareness, higher self-awareness, is missing there. So the supreme self-awareness is missing. Yeah? The awareness of the power is there, but the awareness of the consciousness of the Lord, as Sri Aurobindo says, so there is the self and the Lord, Atman and Purusha, and they are together, Atman and Purusha. Purusha was created for the sake of Atman to manifest. How that self-aware being who was alone wanted to manifest in time and space. And to reveal all its infinite qualities, it needed Purusha. It needed consciousness, which could be, which could create all the relations between different focal points of that being. That there are many Purushas now, yeah? Because Purusha has seeing, speaking, hearing, thinking, touching, feeling, and even its own body. So it can have the whole complex of varieties of relations through which Atman becomes aware of itself through many focal points. Yeah? So that generates the space, time, It generates everything what we know around us, the universe. Yeah? As it is said in Purusha Sukta, his eyes are everywhere, his heads are everywhere, his hands are everywhere, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 heads, 1,000 legs. What does it mean? 1,000 infinity. The movement of Purusha is everywhere. The perception, objective, subjective, comprehensive, apprehensive cognition is present throughout the substance. This is the universal Purusha. And we may think there is no consciousness in the atom, but it is wrong. Otherwise, the atom would not sustain its formation. Yeah? If there would be no awareness of that formation, it would fall into the parts. It will fall into oblivion. Yeah? So it needs to hold to that form of power.
Thank you.
Well, a long explanation from the short question, missing the whole question somehow. But I can't really tell you everything, so only that how I think. Yeah, I think this way, so I can share with you how I think about it and what I learned from the Upanishads. So Upanishads are different from Sankhya in one essential regard, and this is this: yeah, that consciousness, all the faculties, can be turned either without or within, which we don't have at all in Sankhya. There's no such thing at all. Purusha attends to Prakriti, Prakriti generates all the Indriyas at the end, Karmendriyas, Jnanendriyas, and all the Mahabhutas, and there we are. Here we are. Yeah? So the way back to Purusha is to reject Prakriti, to drop it off, to stop its functioning and come back. Here is something else, no rejection of Prakriti. It's these faculties can be turned within by being without. You can perceive Brahman or Atman, that inner self, in the outer being, in the outer activities, which is not at all a case in Sankhya. This is the difference. If we see it, we understand. Here, consciousness operates on these four. We looked through this already. We looked through Sankhya. The whole kind of presentation was on Sankhya last time. Now we are looking into the pre-Sankhyaik paradigm, what preceded Sankhya. So it's quite amazing that there was totally different view on our functionality of consciousness. And there were three major dvandvas about which all Upanishads are talking, all major 12 Upanishads. This is Manas and Vak, Chakshuk and Shrotram, Prana and Apana, or Prana and Annam. These three pairs, let us say, dvandvas. Yeah? So Manas and Vak, Chakshuk and Shrotram, mind and word, seeing and hearing, breathing in and breathing out, or breathing in the prana as the life force and annam as the embodied life force, which we call the animated matter. Matter which carries life force in it, and that is annam. Annam literally means eatable, from root ad. It's participle perfect passive voice. It's like eatable, eated. Eated, what is eated? There is energy in it, consciousness in the matter, which makes matter alive. Yeah, it starts with greenery. All the greenery is living. All our trees and bushes and flowers and grass is growing from the seed. From the seed, the huge tree grows and gives many seeds. The tree dies, but seeds live, generate other trees, other seeds. So look at this. Trees procreate themselves in time. They live, they are born, and they are dying. Yeah? Moreover, there was some research on the trees. Somebody even calculated or recorded the heartbeat of the trees. It is very rare. It hits like in few hours or something, one tuduk somewhere, but it is regular over time. So he put all those, measurements on the trees and got this pulse in the tree. And then it's silence. But that pulse was nothing before, because nobody knew that it will repeat itself. So it repeats itself in the longer periods of time, so we could not register it. So he calls it the heartbeats of the tree. There is some push, some recapturing of its own position, so to say. It's like a heartbeat. They are living beings. And that living matter we consume, and by that living matter we live, and that's what we call food. It's animated matter. We don't eat matter. We eat the energy within the matter. As I was mentioning from the mother's agenda, there was Alma, her friend from Algeria, where she lived. She was a great occultist. She was doing all kind of miraculous things, and she could take pomegranate and put on the plexus solaris and get the energy out of it without eating. And pomegranate was squashing. And that's how she was eating. She was taking energy directly without taking matter into the system, into the pipe. We have this pipeline, comes here in and goes there out, and it's quite long to take all the energy out. Yeah. And whatever the matter is there, we drop it off, but the energy we take in. Yeah. So this is annam, food. It is not seen the same way in Sankhya and later. It is seen something else, as something else. That knowledge of the embodied spirit in matter is lost. It is not needed, as it were. Because in the Upanishads it's needed. It is still there in the Vedic paradigm of transformation of nature, of matter by the spirit. That's why we have to know that material formation is spiritual. Spirit is present there. Yeah? And it can become totally spiritual. We are dying because we cannot live in the speed of the spirit or in the purity of the spirit. And because of that, we are slowly shrinking and dying out. Everything in the world, because of time. Greenery, creatures, animals, people. We are not catching up with the spirit. But there will be a time when this substance will be able to speed up its processes of consciousness, illumine its substances, and catch up with the spirit. And then it will be a very different being, immortal being. So if you look at these three dvandvas, they are amazing, because Brahma Chatushpat in the Upanishads and in the Brahmanas is described in these four. Brahma Chatushpat is Brahman on four legs, four pillars. Is described as Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotram. These are four pillars, according to Kaushitaki Upanishad. If you look at these Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotram, mind and word, seeing and hearing, you see immediately this interesting correspondence, that word and hearing on one side and mind and seeing on the other. So this makes the being Chatushpat, on the four legs, as it were. And because of this four legs, Brahman, the spirit, could embody itself as prana, as life force, which entered the matter and made it animated, alive. This was the embodiment of the spirit through Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotra. So if we look closer at these, we will see that they represent apprehensive and comprehensive cognition. Sri Aurobindo says that these two are major faculties of consciousness, chakshuh and shrotram, seeing and hearing. Here they are, seeing, eye and ear. Amazingly, that in Kabbalistic tradition, the six-cornered star of David is called eye and ear, seeing and hearing. These are major faculties, yeah? They are the only faculties of consciousness. And here they are expressed in these two forms, chakshuh and shrotram. And the active counterpart of these, chakshuh and shrotram are perceptive, they perceive, and active counterparts are manas and vak. If we don't perceive but act comprehensively, it will be vak, and if we act apprehensively, it will be manas. Here they are. These dvandvas, I put them into this format, manas and vak, chakshuh and shrotram, prana and apana. It's just my creation for better understanding. Interestingly, if we build this six-cornered star, these are the six major faculties of consciousness in Upanishads. They are called also in Taittiriya, Annam, Pranam, Chakshuh, Shrotram, Mano, Vacham, iti. This is the definition of Brahman. All these define Brahman. Brahman is embodied as prana. So the spirit comes into this manifestation of time and space as life force. But it needs support. It needs the powers which will introduce it into it. And these are the powers. So on one side here, on the right side, we see Shrotram, hearing, and Vak, word. Hearing is perceptive, Vak is active, word is active. On the other side, we see Manas and Chakshuh, apprehensive cognition, the recognition of the form. And if we can imagine that that recognition of the form can act, it will be some kind of imagination, yeah? Or formation of the form. When we form the form with our consciousness or hold to the form, that is manas. Now we look at manas very differently now than we look in Sankhya. In Sankhya, it is the sixth sense which operates by hearing and seeing. Yeah? Hearing and seeing are dependent on manas. Manas decides what to see, what to hear. Yeah? But here, manas is one of them. He is not deciding anything. He is equal to seeing, hearing, and word. So the word is still free from the mind. The seeing and hearing are still free from the mind. Can you imagine such a paradigm? So mind is not imposing on them its own kind of authority. They are free from the mental selection. Mind is one of them, one of the faculties.
So, Vladimir, one question here, please. So who is the perceiver here?
Wait a minute about perceiver. This is the consciousness, how it acts. Yeah. Who is the perceiver? It is the self. The self is always a perceiver. Yeah. And the consciousness acts on behalf of the self always. Yeah? Purusha is made for Atman according to this. So these are the faculties of Purusha. We are looking into how consciousness functions. Yeah? And you are asking who is conscious. I say it is Atman, whose consciousness we are looking into now.
Mm.
So here, I want a little shock for you. That's why I do this. Yeah? I do a shock therapy. I give you a totally different thing which you never thought of, could not even would not agree that manas is one of these faculties. There is no ahankara here, notice. In the Sankhya, we have ahankara here, which determines manas and all the indriyas. Yeah? Manas operates by all the indriyas. Here, we don't have ahankara. These are the faculties which are connected directly to the Purusha, universal Purusha. They came from him, and we have them from him, from the universal consciousness. So once you look at consciousness and its function from this point of view, this particular scheme which I was giving you before this becomes possible. You can really connect the innermost self to the outermost self through the consciousness, through the faculties. You can, because it's a different paradigm. It is this. So the manas, or let us say the word, let us start with the word, is present on each level, on the physical, when we look into Tantra, yes, Vaikhari Vak, on the vital, which is, and mental, which is the Madhyama Vak, on the higher mental and over mental, Pashyanti Vak, and on the supramental or transcendental, Paravak. So you can imagine if Vak is present on each level, let us look at this round as a cut of the tree, of the trunk of the tree. Yeah? We cut the tree and we see from within the trunk of the tree. So the trunk goes, and all of these six are present on each level, on the physical, on the vital, on the mental, on the overmental, and the supramental. All of them. There is manas, mind, present on the physical. There is a physical mind, mind of the cells. There is vital mind. There is mental mind. There is overmind. There is supermind. Mind. Vak. So on all the levels we have all the faculties. Hearing, the highest hearing, supramental, will be Shruti. It will be inspirational knowledge, comprehensive, full awareness and understanding of all. And that comes down to what we have here in the physical ear, which we perceive as sounds and recognize what the being wants through the sound. The same as seeing. The highest will be drishti, revelation of the divine, seeing the highest light of the truth. And the lowest will be seeing the objects and seeing oneself in the mirror. So all these faculties are present from the lowest to the highest. This is the paradigm of the Upanishads. And even prana, the life force, there is life in the physical as these sensational senses, what do you call it? And there is feelings more by vital life impulses, and there is emotions which are more mental life, and there is life beyond, because life force is the spirit itself, Brahman. And Annam, also the formation of the form, the separate form, as the body. There is Annamayamatma, Pranamayamatma, Manomayamatma, Vijnanamayam and Anandamayamatma, or Purusha, Annamaya Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha. On each level there is a person, there is a being, and this is, on the lowest, it becomes the embodied, the self in the body. Look at this beautiful, absolutely marvelous picture of consciousness and its functionality. It avoids all those disputes about ahankara, what to do, how to leave the world, how to go to find moksha. No moksha, nothing, no discussion about this. It's a very different, the spirit is directly connected to our being here. We are the result of its embodiment. And that's how Kena Upanishad would speak, that it's not Yadvachana abhyuditam yena vaga abhyudiyate tadeva Brahma. Not that which is spoken by speech, but by which the speech is spoken. That is Brahman, Vak. Yan manasana manote yenauhur manomatam tadeva Brahma. Tadvidhi nedam yadidam upasate. That which is not thought by the mind, but by which the mind is thinking. That is Brahman. Not that which is heard by the hearing, but by which the hearing is hearing. That is Brahman. Not that which is seen by the sight, but by which the sight is seeing. That is Brahman. Not that which is breathed by the breathing, but by which the breathing is living and leading forward the being. That is Brahman. So Brahman is present through the faculties in all creation. It is his activities. These faculties are activities of Brahman. Now we have totally different paradigm. It's mind-blowing when you think of it. You are already in the state of moksha if you just can comprehend what Upanishad says. Yeah? You don't need to seek for moksha. And if you have something to say, you always interrupt, please, because
I think this is fantastic, Vladimir.
Yes, it is. That's why Upanishads were so fundamental. They are considered to be the greatest philosophy ever because it is so simple, direct, bypassing all those, mental formulations and problems and solutions. We don't need to solve those problems by the mind. There is truth, more direct, available to us all the time.
So I'm just going into meditation, so excuse me from your description, Vladimir. Maybe that's the whole point. So we're not in bhakti here. It's more of a witness kind of state. If just trying to put it in language that I'm used to just to doing. I mean,
very good. Yeah, we are not.
That would be applying.
You're correct. We are not in bhakti. Yeah? It is something else. It's a fundamental consciousness which we perceive all the time. When we speak, when we see, this is the action of Brahman right now and always. This is the spiritual view. We will come to that, what you were mentioning as bhakti. It's another view from the psychic being. Now, psychic being will use these faculties for its growth. We will speak about this integral paradigm of knowledge. This is the Upanishads.
Yeah, Vladimir, one more thing was the previous slide also clarifies what is the point of the Vedantic point of view. Like previously I was asking whether it is Dvaita or Advaita, but that picture really clarifies that it is the Brahman and also the faculty of the consciousness. Right. So it seems like Advaita, but at the same time, simultaneously, it is having distinction at various levels. So This is really amazing.
It's more integral than just Advaita or Vishishta Advaita, because these are already mental applications. Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, these are already mentalization that either or, what works, yeah? Everything works here because it is more experiential rather than just mental formulation. And at the same time, it is mentally formulated, amazingly. So it includes the mind, but the mind is not dominating other faculties. It's one of them. That's why most probably that it does not dominate the word, does not dominate the seeing, hearing. It's an equal partner needed for the functionality of consciousness.
So can we say that it is the same self as well as the faculties of consciousness are embedded in a very magical coexistence in this picture or the previous slide in 11th slide? Can we say like that, Vladimir? Because
Sure. Here I'm giving a little more, two triangles. You see this yellow, this golden one, and this blue one, bluish. And so these two triangles are very interesting. I put red colors like Agni, Vayu, and Aditya. I'm drifting towards the Vedas from this, because Upanishads took it from the Vedas and formulated it in more applicable to the personality. They made out of the gods the faculties for our individual consciousness, though it is still universal. So you can see that these three are the triangle which is aspiring. Agni, Vayu, and Aditya have to be connected. Once they are connected, the sacrifice is done. And the other are three who are more of the watery substance. This is water substance, Dishaha, the space, Soma, moon, moon and Akasha, space, and Apas or Annam or Apana is breathing out. Apas, the conception, is the water here, the lower water, and Prana, fire. These are fiery triangle, these are watery triangle. I'm just this is a very intuitive knowledge which cannot be easily it is all in the text. In the text, they are operating by these, and for them, they make a lot of sense. For us, maybe when we look at it for the first time, it makes kind of a weird feeling. But this Agni and Soma are two fundamental energies of the Veda. It is by Agni and Soma, by fire and water, that the whole creation comes into being. By aspiration and inspiration. There will be two movements. So I'm just kind of playing with this for your sake to see how it is connected with the Veda. But truly speaking, you don't need to go this route. It may confuse. I don't want you to be confused. These are the devatas, the gods, who became the faculties. As Sri Aurobindo says, the gods in the Upanishads are the senses, the faculties of consciousness. Now I'm coming to this, what I wanted to tell today. So Adhyatmic epistemology would have two different approaches, and it's interesting that Bill already mentioned this. These would be operations of consciousness, which are built on this. These are technologies of consciousness, how Brahman is operating within this manifestation. And the other one is the verities of the psychic being, the qualities, such as sincerity, humility, gratitude, aspiration, goodness, courage, perseverance. These are the qualities of the soul. They are not here, notice. They are not in these. These are technologies, how consciousness acts. And these are the verities are some qualities, some essential qualities of Ananda, which we perceive in this manifestation through the presence of the soul, from the soul. And that generates bhakti. This is the bhakti part. I'm moving to the biggest question, where these six are coming from. What do you think? What is mind really? If you deconstruct this, what is seeing? What is hearing? What is the difference between seeing and hearing? Let us discuss a bit. before we jump into something even more sophisticated. So, what is the difference between seeing and hearing? Could you define it? Or between, I don't know, thinking and speaking? These three dvandvas, between breathing in and breathing out. Let's start with seeing and hearing. Yeah, some ideas. All ideas are good. How would you define psychologically? I don't need, or start whatever you want to say, physically. It will be the same there, on the physical level, on the psychological level, on every level.
Well, seeing is more focused on form, so it's more concentrated, limited. And hearing is, opening to space and what's coming from all directions.
Absolutely lovely. Such a good, straightforward definition. Hearing is not only what we see in the limited form, but it is something which may happen in time and space also, which we don't see directly. It's amazing.
I would have to go back and refer to it, but the seeing and the hearing, yeah, they're different. They're coming from different of the five elements, the lower five elements. Each are tied to each one in a way. Anyway, don't listen to me. I'm just thinking too much, but I used to be able to kind of relate to that.
Yeah. Please relate, whatever. We are here to actually discover something very important of our consciousness. If that works, then these presentations make sense. If not, then what? Just information about some philosophy. No, this is about us, how the difference between seeing and hearing, between eye and ear. Why the six-cornered star, David's star, Solomon's star, is called ear and eye and ear. Why these two?
Vladimir, I was just thinking about seeing. When we look at something, the physical form that we see evokes internally a state of consciousness, an awareness, say the awareness of beauty. So there is there are thoughts associated with it. Many things happen internally because of what we see outside. We can also, I think, when we see something that's in the physical world, it can, if we're sensitive, it can generate within us a full realization of the qualities that form embodies. So it's a lot more than it's not just physical form, it's the qualities that physical form represents that we actually can see, feel, understand, and relate to.
Right. You see, this feel, you added word, and that is prana, that is the middle. So we have three accesses to reality through visual, hearing, and audio, visual, and touch, tactile. Only three accesses. And it is known in the educational psychology that there are three types of personalities: people, students, and teachers. Some are accessing reality through seeing. They have to see before they understand. Yeah? Others have to hear to understand. Yeah? That's enough for them. They can listen to the words, to the stories, and rebuild the visions within. They can arrive at the visions through the word. And the others need even to touch. And if they don't touch, the child doesn't understand what is two as a concept. It has to have two balls, and then, oh, okay, this is two. Yeah. It has to be tangible for them. Tactile personality. This is a known thing now in psychology, and there are teachers like this. And can you imagine in the classroom, teacher who is tactile, or tactile would be the easiest, hearing person, speaks all the time some stories, and the class is full of seeing people, they would suffer.
Mm.
So this is something interesting. So on one side, on this side, on the left, we see the seeing personality of perceptive and active. On the other, we see the hearing personality of perceptive and active. And in the middle, we see the tactile, the person of touch. Feeling. So we have three major movements of consciousness. And the feeling is considered to be the most central in a way. Because when we arrive at feelings, it means that already on one side comprehensive, on the other apprehensive, apprehensive and comprehensive are already inbuilt in that. Because the feeling will be the result of this Brahma Chatushpat. This is Brahma Chatushpat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is Brahman in between, in its form of the spirit or life force, and in the form of embodied life force. You remember how Adam was created in the Bible. God took the clay, and then what he did? He breathed into him his breath. He animated the matter. This is the Brahman. Brahman animating matter, and matter starts living. So he gives his force. And interestingly, this annam is also called apana, breathing out. Because breathing out, every time when we breathe in is one thing, but when we breathe out, we send the energy into the matter and make matter live. This is even biologically true.
If I may just say something, Vladimir.
Sure.
You're asking the difference between hearing and seeing. So if we connect the story of Brihaspati to this, Brihaspati was speaking, and at that highest level, if he says, let there be a tree, there was a tree. So if as a third person I'm seeing and hearing, it is both the same. As you said, then it seems to be the same entity, in two different, from two different faculties. So that is, and Vak is speech, Manas is there, and then who is Brihaspati then? Is it the prana, pus?
It is Annam, yes, Annam and Prana. It is the entity, it is the self and consciousness. And that self-consciousness is totally identical with its action. This is action of self-expression. Vak, yes, it expresses its own true self. So there is a total match between Manas and Vak. Total match between Artha and Shabda in the Tantric tradition. Yeah? Artha on one side and Shabda on the other side. The word and the meaning of the word. This is the self, and this is the meaning of the self.
This is mind-blowing, actually.
It is really amazing. And the more one thinks about it, the more one discovers that how true it is, to everything what is happening in our consciousness. So consciousness is, in Upanishads, is never spoken about consciousness as something separate from the faculties. Faculties represent consciousness. Faculties are consciousness. So our seeing is consciousness. Oh, wow, wait a minute. My seeing is consciousness. My hearing is consciousness. If you can imagine, if we don't have seeing, hearing, self-expression, power of speaking, feeling, no even sense of the body, then where is that activity of consciousness. Purusha is not available because these are the faculties of Purusha. Interestingly, that Aitareya defines this directly. Yes? The Purusha was pulled out of the lower waters, heated up by Atman, by the self, who didn't have qualities, didn't have these faculties, and heated up Purusha broke forth in faculties. So his mouth broke forth, from his mouth speech came out. It was first creation. Speech was first. And from speech fire was born. Here they are. From his nostrils broke forth. From his nostrils prana came. And from prana vayu, here they are. His eyes broke forth. From eyes chakshu, seeing. And from seeing Aditya, the light of the sun came out. So the seeing preceded the light. His ears broke forth. From ears, shrotram, hearing, and from shrotram, dishaha, the directions, the space was born. Because he wanted to hear, the space came into manifestation. So this in which we are, the context in which we are in build, yes, his heart broke forth. This is interesting. From the heart, Chandrama is Soma, or the moon. From Manas, and from Manas Chandrama was born. His navel broke forth. From the navel, Apana, I should write Apana here also. And from Apana, Mrityu came into being, death. It is by dying that the spirit could embody itself in time and space. And this navel, Apana, interestingly, it is also connecting us to the embryo life inside, in the womb. It is that which is feeding us, that connection, the navel. And Vishnu lies down on the Shesha, and from his navel the lotus comes out, and in the lotus Brahma Svayambhu, the creator of the universe, is seated. And that lotus is the universe. So from his navel, from his breathing out, as the Lord breathes out to Adam, as Vishnu breathes out he generates and creates the world. This is how Brahman was embodied into matter, into time and space. So you can see how beautifully it is perceived by the Upanishadic rishis. These faculties are something more than just what we know as mind and word, seeing and hearing of our own personal being. These are universal faculties. They are present everywhere. Everyone has eyes. Everyone listens. Everyone touches. Animals, plants, atoms. Everyone has that necessity to express itself in some form and keep to that expression of that form. I was comparing this with amoeba, with monocellular organism, where it started to move and try to multiply and to cluster with other cells. It wants to communicate, it wants to reach out, it wants to express itself, it wants to see, it wants to understand, but there are no yet organs. But the consciousness is already there with all these 6 major faculties. And slowly that monocellular organism starts moving towards the building up the organs. And from that monocellular organism, this being, this body comes into existence. And now it can see outwardly, it can hear. And not only that, it can understand and express the spiritual qualities in the word. And not only for oneself, but also for the others. Now, slowly it builds up all this in manifestation in this apas, in this apana, in this annam, in this matter. It builds up all the faculties. And this body, if you look at this, it is necessary only for these faculties to function. Otherwise, body is absolutely not necessary. Why do we need the body? We need it to see, to hear, to think, to feel, to move, to touch, to create. These are the faculties of the Purusha. And they are
So,
embodied.
Vladimir, well,
Yeah.
it's not that the faculties were needed to perceive the world. The faculties created the world.
Yes. Created the worlds, yes, and all of us together. This is the divine economy. Everything is needed for everything. This is the Upanishadic paradigm. Yeah. Maybe next time I will move into these, where these are coming from. Who are these? Seeing and hearing, we started to define. We will start next time with definition of difference between other members, other faculties, what they really represent. I have my own definitions I can share with you. That, for example, speech is the power of self-expression. Yeah? And there are many ways of speaking, not only through the words, but through gestures, through movement, through silence, through looks, through many ways, yeah, through dance, through music, through art. You can express yourself in many languages, and that is the word, the power of the word, power of self-expression. So this deconstruction of the faculties gives us much more scope to understand our consciousness and its functionality. Okay, I will stop here. It's 11 o'clock. And we will start from this symbol next time, and we will move into these secret operations or essential operations, which will define for us this what we know as mind and speech and seeing and hearing, where these are coming from, why they're here.
So let me just one question. Or
Sure.
in Jyotish, Vladimir, the combination of water and fire is considered highly disruptive. And there are specific positions in zodiac where they are defined by a specific term which represent the transition from water to fire. So here this triangle of fire and water, is this also indicate an state of existence which is highly disruptive in nature, or is it spoken about in the Vedas, the combination of water and Agni? Because in Jyotish, there seems to be a totally different paradigm, which could either be disruptive extremely in a different way in the material plane, and also in the spiritual plane, it could be seen in a different way.
Yeah, it's a big topic, fire and water, Soma and Agni, yes. It's considered that Agni is born in the waters, yeah, in the ocean. Ocean is the home of fire. So how is that even possible? But if you look at our universe from physical point of view, you will see that there is so much of the hydrogen. Our sun is a hydrogen bomb, It's hydrogen everywhere. The whole universe is like 80% hydrogen. So, and that hydrogen is the heat of the universe, which has, the ultimate absolute zero is just minus 273 Celsius. And that is because of the elements in the space hold the heat, the energy. So this is the fire, I think. From the physical point of view, but from this philosophical, we have another view that water put on the fire evaporates. These are three gunas, yes? Fire is rajas, water is tamas, and evaporation of the water by the heat is sattva. So we have three gunas, three major qualities in nature.
I look forward to the definitions of the deities.
Yeah, there is much more, of course, to look into, but yeah, because of, we can come to it again, because these are the fundamental notions of fire and water. Water is considered to be soma, the delight, ambrosia, which is consumed by the fire. And by that, everything lives, the life energy comes. Yeah? Everything exists by this constant pouring of the delight into the fire of the divine will. Everything moves, lives, enjoys.
This is fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you.
Right.
Goodness.
All right, then till the next time. See you then. Bye.